But this is biology.
Yeah.
It is not the evil eye.
It is not.
Oh, biology is better than the evil eye? Evil eye is simpler. Convinces a lot more people. The reason why you're losing these arguments, by the way, is because you won't make a judgment for people that they can just latch onto and go with. All right, we're back for more. We're about halfway through. Let's see where we're going.
The health of your offspring, and then your offspring's offspring,
And the
then
society.
and the society as a whole.
The whole society.
If enough people are engaging in this type of thing.
Yeah. So
it's just, this is the same argument that it would be for 40-year-old women. I don't understand why they think this is a different argument, but it's the same argument, right? If the persons in the society engage, then the thing happens to the society. It doesn't matter if it's genetic or if it's chromosomal. That makes no difference whatsoever. The actual impact is the same. These flat world people, they can't see that connection, that vertical connection, right? The thing down here, genetic or chromosomal, doesn't actually matter because that pattern is the same when lots of persons within a group engage in a certain set of behaviors. There are outcomes. It doesn't matter why they engage in those behaviors. It doesn't matter the mechanism of those outcomes if the outcomes are the same. They're the same. It doesn't make a difference, right? And so you're going to have some sort of an impact, right? And I guess Colin's argument could be, well, yeah, but it's not permanently genetic or something. But nothing in genetics is permanent. There's mutation. Like, I don't get it. So again, if that were true, a lot of these small groups would have already suffered from the problems he thinks they'd ultimately collapse from. And yeah, some have, of course, but some have not. And you have to explain both, not just one.
couple of things. What is it that people should know at a rudimentary level about biology?
I mean, it depends on the question. If we're talking specifically about like cousin marriage and inbreeding, that type of thing, is that, or
Well, I was talking more generally, but let's go cousin marriage first. Like, what should people know if someone's just trying to figure this out? Like, oh, I don't know. It's these communities just have these practices, and it just seems so unjust to criticize them. And what should people know about that? Not even the skeptics, because it's not that they're skeptical, it's that they place another value above that. The value of not criticizing the behaviors and practices of people from another culture. And they don't think that biology is the lens or the tool to use to analyze those differences. They think that it's acceptance, or they think that it's love, or they think there's something like, what argument could you give to say, not that you should use a biological lens, but that you should at least consider it?
Wow, it's weird to me that he diagnoses the problem correctly. They're going on emotional values, not on biological values. And yet, he mentioned earlier, right? Well, what evidence do you use to convince people that cannot be convinced by evidence? It's like, obviously, none. It's not that hard, right? So they're not evidence-based. They might be emotional-based, all right? And the presumption that this is bad, which he, I mean, at least Peter's honest, right? Like, no, I think these things are bad. Colin's agnostic. Peter thinks they're bad. Fair enough. But it's bizarre. Like, what should they know? Why is knowledge going to change something? I know lots of things that don't change my mind about anything. So, like, what is the magic of knowledge, right? Because they want knowledge to be magic because they think they have more than other people, or they think that frame is the better frame. And he's using the word lens. That's fine too. Sure, there's a biological lens. What do they need to know? Like, what thing do you tell them? But better, how do you convey that to people? People tell me things all the time and I don't believe them. So, like, did you convey knowledge if I ignored you, if I didn't hear you, or if I didn't believe you? Of course not. You didn't convey anything at all. Certainly didn't convey knowledge, because that's not how knowledge works. Knowledge only comes through interaction with the world, right? Knowledge only comes through participation, action. That's it. Discussed this with Matthieu Pageau. recently. That's my 8,000 view video so far and counting. Who knows? Great video. The only form of knowing is through participation. So what he's talking about here's information. What information about biology should give something? Well, if I don't believe your information, if your information is irrelevant, why is this a magical argument? And again, if you care more about being accepting or being loving or not hurting people's feelings or whatever the heck it is, some of which Peter's smart enough to actually mention, good for him, kudos. I don't think information that isn't that is going to help you. I also don't think that that's what those people are using. I think that's the excuse they're using so that they can get what they want, which is this fantasy of a free and open world where we can just mix people together and everything will be better or good or it's really the old argument, actually, right? These people are bad people because they were in a bad place, and if you move them to a good place, they'll become good people. Like, very old, lots of experiments, all failed for what should be obvious reasons, right? That's not necessarily why they're bad people or why they're living in poverty or what you perceive to be poverty. Maybe they're not living in poverty. You just think it's poverty. Now that's possible too. They're not like that, but that might not be because of their environment. Some of it might be. Maybe all of it is for some people, but not for all people. Some people are just bad.
Well, it's just at a fundamental level, it's important to understand the basic facts if you're going to start dealing with any question. So you need to understand, how prevalent are these types of genetic mutations? What are the increased risks for first cousin marriage and increasing these genetic anomalies? This is just a basic biology textbook. There's going to be something on inbreeding depression. It's why certain species go extinct. They have these evolutionary dead ends, or they just have sort of this extinction spiral that they go into where they can't come out of it because they have just so many of these single variants of genes. They're not getting enough variants from the outside to protect them from this spiral.
Is this about biology or genetics? Because now I'm confused. It seems like somebody else is confused too. It's a biological argument or a genetics argument. And why would I need to know those things? And he correctly pointed out, if you care about these questions, yeah, well, what if I don't? What if I'm not asking these questions? What if I don't care at all because I'm in love and I want to have children with this person? Or for the continuation of my family, I need to have children with this person. Right. And so do I care about the biology or the genetics that's involved? Maybe I don't. That might be an issue.
Yeah, it's just a basic statistics about the risks and effects on society that these types of things have. And then you can make your own value judgment on top of that. But you need to have the facts first that are unmired by ideology and everything else.
Facts are always unmired by ideology. Why do you need to have the facts first? Why should facts change your mind? Right. The fact that the husband beats the wife doesn't cause her to leave him in most cases. I hate to break it to you. The sad fact of the world. But it's a fact of the world. It's independent of ideology. It's independent of these things already. It's a weird way to talk.
That you can actually then make an objective decision. You can think about, well, what do I value?
Oh, you can make an objective decision. Oh, well, aha. Objectivity, the highest value. You can make an objective decision. That's the highest value. See, and this is how they want all change to work. They want change to work through objective decision making of persons, of actual, just one person at a time. And that way you don't need government. That's why they're all tend towards socialism in one form or another. That's why you don't need parents telling people what to do, or kings telling people what to do, or necessarily laws, right? They talked about this. Well, maybe not necessarily laws. Maybe also laws, right? They don't want any constraints on the thinking of the person and their ability to freely make decisions. But they don't want those decisions to be freely made. They want those decisions to be made on the information, the facts that they care about. That's the difference. They want the decisions of the person to be made on the facts that they prioritize. They don't see that. I get that. I totally understand the blindness and stuckness here, but I'm very familiar with all the science. People do this pretty much. It's the really good ones who don't, but like almost all of them do this. And like I understand why. I understand the mechanisms. I've talked to these people for years. I get it. But also, like, no, you want the situation to work differently from how the world works. At the societal level, something or someone needs to take control of that, right? And if it's someone, there's going to be a bunch of someones underneath them helping that, right? And so one thing that could take control of it is a runaway idea, that sort of mimetic desire sort of thing that Dawkins talked about, that Colin actually alluded to earlier in this conversation. He alluded to that infectious bad idea concept. And I'm not going to disagree that exists. What it is and how it works might be a great discussion to have, although I think only the believers can have that, right? Because now we're in the realm of spirit already, that ethereal realm. But we're not addressing the core issue. How does this change take place? And how do we ensure that it takes place? Because if it's every person having a set of information or facts, making a decision, you would be surprised. The results are not going to be what you expect. And then what are you going to do when you're not getting the results you want out of that? Because this is the story of the breakdown of the left. If people just knew what I knew, they'd believe what I believe, and they'd do what I think they would do. Except none of that is true. I have the same information as a lot of people on a lot of things, and I interpret it differently, mainly because I have other information that they don't have, and I have other perspectives that they don't have. This is why when somebody comes to me and they say, well, I really care about homeless people, don't ever do that, by the way, because you're in for it, right? You're in for it immediately. I immediately ask them how many, if they've ever been homeless. And of course, the answer has always so far been no. Okay. Just to let you know, I mean, I'm not saying it will be forever, but it's always so far been no. And it's quite a few times. Right. And they say, oh, well, have you taken in any homeless people into your house? And, almost all of them are appalled. A few of them say, well, no, I haven't really, met any that, that needed or would come home with me or whatever, fine and fair. But at that point, I can't listen to them anymore because I have both been homeless and taken homeless people in. So I'm like, your perspective's irrelevant. You have no facts worth bringing to bear on this topic because you don't have any knowledge about it, because you didn't live through it in any form, even in a tangential form of having somebody homeless live with you, right? So I'm not listening to you. It's not going to happen. And any facts or information you give to me from that point are going to get interpreted through the lens of my experience, which, by the way, is the correct lens. It's the thing I know most about. It's things I've experienced. Maybe my knowledge of the things I've experienced sucks, granted, but it's still 100 times better than somebody else's knowledge that didn't experience the thing. Sorry, just part of reality. So this has already happened. It's the way the world is. Nothing I can do. So yeah, and this is the same sort of a situation. These people want to change because they believe if you knew what they knew, you would interpret it the way they interpret it. You would decide the way they think you would decide, and then everything would be fine because no one would need to apply any force or coercion or enchantment on anyone to cause them to do anything different than their will and their desire. Everybody wants just their will and desire. That's what they want. I mean, we're all hedonists to some extent, right? And maybe not everyone. There are saints out there, I guess, but almost everybody, they just want what they will and they desire. And people who grew up in privilege tend to want that more. Now, I don't know if these two grew up in privilege, but also they're certainly in privilege now, aren't they?
Value in society, then you can make a decision. And I'm not here to tell people what their value should be. It's just that you should know that your kids are.
What your values should be. Well, how does that relate to information and facts and decisions? Oh, irrespective of facts and information, you make decisions based on your values. Oh, so he doesn't want to tell them what their values should be, but he wants them to derive the values from the facts. That's the is-ought problem right there in a nutshell. And you can't do that. That's not possible. In fact, the values shape how you interpret the facts and maybe even what things you consider facts. Oops, got a little bit backwards.
You're going to have a 10-point IQ drop if you're marrying your first cousin. I think that's probably a valuable thing for people to know.
Yeah, I hope they have a 20 IQ point drop, because IQ, except at the low end, doesn't correlate to anything, Colin. Why is this important? I would rather people be nice than smart, by whatever definition of smart. I don't know why this is valuable to you. You're betraying your values, though. So you want to tell them what to value, but then you keep mentioning this 10-point IQ drop. Well, at least we know where your values are, I guess.
And then they can say, "Oh, I don't care if my kid is mentally handicapped." Or
did you see that? This little, it's so snobby. It's so elitist. I hate that stuff. I hate that. Oh, I don't care. I don't care if my kid's 10-point IQ drop. Disgusting. Disgusting, Colin. Terrible.
Or at least, has a severe drop. I think they probably should care, but again, I'm just here to tell you these are the risk factors.
I'm here to tell you and sneer at you. Yeah, but you sneered. So you didn't just tell us, right? You didn't just report the propositions. You also sneered. That's the problem, because these people like this, they don't have any concept of communication. Right? They think all communication is language and all language is propositions. And it's like, well, A, that's not even all there is to language. And B, that's the worst form of communication is propositions. Absolute lowest form. It really is. It's the lowest form. So yeah, they may be better, or at least they think they're better, because they're definitely not. They may be better than the average person at wielding language as a weapon. And therefore, they want language to be much more important than it is, right? And by language, in this case, I mean, pretty much propositional side of language. Because I would argue that language also is wrapped up in tone, right? It's wrapped up in the speed and the way that you say things, and whether or not you're lyrical with your speech, right? Language is wrapped up in a bunch of things. They're really flat world propositionals, right? And they're very much age of gnosis believers, where knowledge is the highest value and knowledge is merely propositions about the world. And that comes out pretty clearly here. But the sneering says way more than this. Well, I don't care what decisions you make. I don't care at all. I mean, you can decide any way you want about a 10 IQ point drop. It's fine with me. I'm just giving you the facts that that's going to happen. Even though statistically, that's not even what the statistics say. But, it's up to you.
That you need to be aware of.
So, again, and I apologize for these questions, but I think it's really important.
Why does he keep apologizing for questions? Like, what is with these people? Like, seriously. Like, why are you apologizing for asking questions? Right? Well, and the answer is, I don't want you to feel as though either I'm, a low-grade individual asking stupid questions, or these stupid questions are because you're being unclear. I don't want that. No, we can't have that. I must be very, very upper crust. It's nonsense. This is craziness. And these are the same people who will turn around tomorrow and say things like, well, there are no stupid questions. Well, you're certainly acting like there are. All the time, by the way. So when you say that, I actually don't believe you, because it's contradiction. It's formative contradiction. You say that with your words, you act a different way. Isn't that interesting? A lot of people do that. Watch for that pattern. It's everywhere.
Important, because we have a crisis in Western society now, a basic educational crisis. The tool that people use to figure this stuff out should not be political about cousin marriage, letting people in who have high rates of cousin marriage. The tools to use this, I like how you framed it. The first order of business is that we have to figure out the facts. And if you want to figure out the facts, you have to use biology.
What? Holy macaroni. Facts are determined by your goal. So I don't know where he's getting this. You have to use the facts. Facts are fungible. They don't live in objective material reality where they're just there for you to grab and they're always correct or something. There are lots of facts. Facts conflict with one another quite frequently. So I don't know where he's getting this. Like, you have to start from, oh, I do, huh? Are you the arbiter of what I have to do and not have to do? Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you, Dr. Boghossian. Appreciate it. No, I don't think you're in charge. I think you want to be in charge. Obviously, that's basically what you're admitting to. You want to be in charge. Fair enough. A lot of people want to be in charge. I would like to be in charge of certain things myself. So whatever. I'm just a little bit more honest about it, not only with myself and my audience, but pretty much with everybody, because I just don't care. Who knows? It's not self-deprecating humor, folks. It's just me being honest, and that also being funny by accident, basically. It's fine. But what do you mean? You have to start. I like what you said. You have to start with facts. No, you don't. You don't need awareness of these things. You're giving people awareness of the wrong things already. And then when they don't work out anyway, because the education system made them aware of the wrong things already, they were things that you would mostly agree with for the most part. You just think they got corrupted, and in some cases they did, and in some cases they did not. It's very easy to look at a slice of data and come to the conclusion of climate change if you miss the fact, for example, that all the data sets start from a time of unusual coolness for some random reason, which I'm sure I can't understand why they all happen to start there. And then just it makes it look like there's way more climate warming than there is. I'm sure it's a coincidence. I'm sure it wasn't causal because they were looking to prove something or anything like that. You just start with the facts, right? But they did that. I mean, you have your utopia, sir. It just didn't utopia for you in the way that you thought. Sorry. Education is not the answer.
So how would you respond to those people? And I've been thinking about this too. I've lost trust in our institutions. I've lost trust in our experts for a whole number of reasons.
Wait, isn't this the guy who wrote the Circle Squared hoax paper? Really? You lost? Huh. Okay. This is a weird admission this late in what's happened. We knew that already. We knew you didn't have trust in them. You demonstrated why you shouldn't for everybody. So the irony here is that the person who showed you shouldn't trust the scientific institutions is this man. Like, he's one of them, right? One of 3 people that did that, right? But he's one of them. Like, telling me you've lost trust and that education, there's reasons not to trust education. I feel like you already made that point a long time ago. I don't know. And people aren't using education and people's credentials because of you too, sir. So you're contributing to the problem you're complaining about. I mean, I think you have the wrong diagnosis, as I pointed out, but also, what is going on here?
Lost trust. I think I was telling you before, one of my wake-up moments was the Hunter Biden laptop. I've lost trust in, I don't know anything about COVID, so I never talk about it.
Is the Hunter Biden laptop a scientific or an institutional issue? That would be a fascinating discussion to have. I mean, Peter, how would you classify that? Or are you saying you lost trust in institutions in general? And is that a function of the institutions changing, or just you being aware of something that you weren't aware of before? Because I'm just going to tell everybody right up front, right? Just this secret for the audience. Shh, don't tell anybody. It's been this bad all along. There's no point in history you can go to and find it that much better. You can find it better. You can't find it that much better, right? We can look at JFK files being sealed. Well, that was a long time. It was before either of us were born, for sure, right? Like, fair enough. You can find anomalies and like you find that level of anomaly all over the place. The question is, why does it happen? That would be a fascinating discussion to have. discussion to have is not, well, I lost faith because of this one incident, even though this incident is indistinguishable from any number of other incidences. Like, oh, the Syrian red line. You didn't lose it there? And that was pretty public. No clue that something was up when the Syrian red line wasn't enforced, huh? None at all? Let them poison people. It's all fine. I guess. I don't know. The Iran-Contra, like, I mean, every 5 years we got a big one, right? The company that did nothing but create fraudulent banking documents for the 2008 housing crisis, as seen on 60 Minutes. No, that didn't give you any shaken faith in institutions. The whole 2008 housing crisis didn't. The whole Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac bailout before that, which they do housing, by the way. There were 2 bailouts. Huh. Weird. No one ever talks about that. None of those incidents gave you any pause. It was the Hunter Biden laptop. It sounds like you're just late to the party. I'm sorry, but like.
About it. But there are people who say, well, why should we, quote unquote, trust the science on cousin marriage? We trusted the science on COVID. That largely screwed us with the lockdowns.
Did we trust the science, though, on the fake news virus scamdemic? What was the science on the fake? Oh, there wasn't any. There were just a bunch of people saying there was science, which was not in existence ever at any point and will not come into existence because that has already passed and can't go back and rewrite history. So did we? Like, what did we try? See, this is the better discussion. In fact, the papers about masks not being effective had already been released long before 2020. And yet we had people who were very charismatic in some cases, and some of their charisma may have come through authority, right? Or the conveyance of authority. All fascinating topics to discuss, by the way. We'd love to discuss all of them with Peter. That would be wonderful, right? Telling us what the science said, even though there was no science, they brought no evidence, and it wasn't true, which might be why they brought no evidence and there was no science. I don't know. Like, there could be a relationship there, right? So did we trust the science? I never trusted any of the idiots at all. I trusted Tim Pool, who said, hey, you know what? Buy some extra food. If we're wrong and this turns out to be a big nothing burger, you'll have lost nothing because you can still eat the damn food. That's exactly what I did. I'd like to think that I wouldn't have needed Tim Pool's reminder because I kind of already knew that. But you know what? I probably needed Tim Pool's reminder, to be honest. I remember distinctly going to the grocery store and buying a 25-pound bag of rice. And because the woman asked me, what do you need that much rice for? And I said, you never know, right? And this is like the last week of February or something of 2020. And to be fair, I actually, was that before I went to Hawaii or after? It might have been before I went to Hawaii even. But I had been listening to Tim Pool. And he said, there's this virus thing out there. It could get big. Who knows? But you know what? The safest thing to do is just buy extra food. Something happens, you'll have the extra food. You can always eat it later. Yeah, it's a very pragmatic approach. No science involved. No science needed. Best advice I got during the whole damn thing. Best advice I heard from anybody during the entire incident. Tim Pool for the win. Zero science. Barely educated. Great guy. Very smart. Much smarter than poor Peter here.
We've trusted the science on a wide range of other things. Why should we trust the science on first cousin marriage? I just don't trust any of it. I don't trust our institutions to, like, what would your response to that be?
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate that we're in that position where people, just don't believe anything anymore, even like basic biology, because of how the institutions have failed us. And that's why I started talking about like what males and females are, because institutions were saying it's a spectrum. There's, sex isn't anything in particular. But
institutions were saying? Huh. I've never heard an institution talk. I wonder what that sounds like. Are you sure institution? Like, this is the thing, right? When there's blame, it's abstract with these people. That way they don't have to punish any persons because they don't want to be punished for things they're guilty of, right? Or could take blame for. That's why. It's psychological, fundamentally, at that level. Like, yeah, they don't want to be punished for their sins. They're not going to punish other people for their sins. Instead, they're going to take the materialist route, bring into existence an agent called institutions. And then the institution as an agent talked and said these things. That horrible institution, how dare it do that? Why can't we identify the guilty parties and throw them in prison for lying or some other form of fraud? Because that happened, and that's a legal framework we could institute like immediately, or preferably 5 years ago, but whatever. I mean, I'll settle for tomorrow. That would be great. And these guys won't even push that. This is how boundaryless they are. They do not want to enforce boundaries and rules on anyone for anything. They want everything to be, your free agency. Well, once you have the facts, of course, the facts. I'm going to give you the facts, by the way, because I'm Colin Wright, and I'm going to give you the facts. Okay, Colin. And I'm not saying his facts are incorrect at all. I'm just saying, like, I don't care about your facts, and I'm not listening to you anyway, because you don't listen to me. So, like, fair's fair. You don't listen to me, I don't listen to you. That's fine with me. That's true of most of the 9 billion people on the planet. In fact, the overwhelming majority of them. They don't listen to me, and I don't listen to them. I'm okay with this. This is fine for me. Why are you surprised that most people aren't listening to you? And why do you think you should be listened to? Oh, I'm appealing to this objective basic biology thing. Do you know how many times biology has changed at the basic level since I've been alive, sir? Oh no, we're not going to discuss that. Somehow because history begins today. History begins right now. Whenever I'm speaking, history begins. This is not the end of history, the beginning of history. Right? Ridiculous.
Great example. Great example.
And so, like, my approach to these things was just like, there's the value thing, like, should males compete in female sports? And mine wasn't that, like, no, they shouldn't, even though I don't think they should. But it was just like, the reasons they were giving for allowing males in female sports was that, well, some people are intersex, and you can change sex with your by just giving people testosterone or whatever. And I'm just sitting there being like, you can't actually, if that's your argument of why Leah Thomas, should be able to compete in the female category, like, you're just wrong about biology. Let me try to clarify this. But yeah, we've had the institutions just fail at every step. And I think it's a good thing we don't trust the institutions now when they're not trustworthy, when they're saying complete crap. And so they need to just, like, crumble away, and then we need to build something back.
What? See, typical leftist, like, I don't like the results, so I just want to destroy it. And then we'll build it my way. Oh, like they did with gender, Colin. They didn't like the gender restrictions. They decided to destroy them, and now they're going to build them back, which is exactly what they did. That's why there were like 68 genders in the state of New York or something. I forget. This is so funny. I was like, well, of course there's going to be an arbitrary number of them. They don't have a system to replace it with. What makes you think that you can replace the old system with a new system? What makes you think anyone alive can do that? Because my argument is going to be, it's silly to think anyone alive can replace something that is hundreds of years old and built up through a distributed cognition through time. This is silly talk. I mean, this is just people not thinking. So we've got to tear this down. What? Why? It's built up momentum from the past. You can't get it back once you tear it down. That's not good. And then build something new. You couldn't build a Lego house, sir. You're not the guy. I'm sorry. You can say, Mark, you can't know that. You can know that perfectly from observation. Okay? The people building things are too busy to have a conversation with Peter. They're too busy to go on podcasts all day and talk. Because when you're building something for real, you're actually building it. Right? And so you don't have time to have theoretical conversations about whether or not you should tear things down and build things up, because you're building them. I don't need to know who's working on building stuff. I can just go out and observe the world and figure it out by observation. But I do know that people who talk about building things generally are never going to build anything ever, because they're busy talking about building things. And sometimes people who want to build things will talk about their plans for building things and ask for resources, which I do quite often. We're always looking for help. So if you want to help, board games, card games, formats for book clubs, whatever, practices. We got a lot of practices we want to resurrect here that we've done in the past. Please join us. Mark of Wisdom Discord, right? We've been building things. We continue to build things. We will continue to build things with or without your help, by the way, because we're builders. And unfortunately, I have to spend some of my time doing this for various good reasons. And I wish I could do other things, but the reason why I'm not building more is because I don't have the resources, right? Some of those are people resources, some of those are cash resources. Is what it is. I'm constrained. So this has been helpful for people. So I will continue to do this because it's helping people. And that's even more important than building things. Because if I help somebody who's building something, that's better probably. Because maybe I'm the only one that can help them out of whatever it is they need help with. I mean, I hope that's actually not true, but it might be. And I'm not willing to take a chance. So before you criticize my building, yeah, we build stuff. I've had a lot of my stuff torn away and taken down by people with exactly this mentality, right? Which is why I don't like the mentality. You guys ain't the guys. You ain't going to build nothing. Don't worry about it. Okay? Why don't you instead revivify things? Because you're sitting there complaining about the institutions, which you're both part of at one point in some fashion, instead of pointing out what's wrong with the institutions and pointing out solutions to fix it, which is much easier than tearing things down and then building new things. It's much easier. It's light years less work. Light years. It's not even close. They don't want to do that. They want to talk. They want to talk, and they want to magic other people into doing things their way. And I always tell people, look, I can help you, or you can do things your way by yourself. But that's it. If you want things done your way, you have to do them entirely by yourself. Period. That's just a constraint of the universe. I can't do your thing your way. I can help you with your thing in the way that I can help you, but it's not going to be your way. Sorry. And the talkie-talkie people, because they're talkie-talkie people, they don't understand that basic trade-off. And so they think that they can just talkie-talkie into somebody else's building their utopia for them. It's not going to work.
I mean, if we just blindly trust them because people say like, well, we need institutions that we trust. It's like, well, we need trustworthy institutions first. Exactly. And then, they need to have a track record of trust before we can actually start, giving them our trust back.
The unbelievably ridiculous confusion of this. We have to have the thing to have the thing before we have the thing. No, that's obviously wrong. Okay. Trust can be built and enforced that way and is justified that way. That's how we got into this. Right? Trust the science. Because it had built up that way. But obviously that doesn't work because there was a time when you could, quote, trust the science, or at least trust scientists not to lead you astray. And that time has passed. But the system he described, that description was the description that was given to the institutions when we had trust in them. So obviously that system doesn't work. It also doesn't make any sense because it's in the wrong sequence and order. There's something else going on. This is the self-reference, right? When you get trapped with too few words or too few tools, you end up having the tools magically self-bootstrap themselves. And then you get into this recursion and you call it reciprocal or something, which is ridiculous. Not all uses of the word reciprocal are ridiculous, but almost all the ones you're going to hear nowadays are going to be insane, right? And so that doesn't make any sense that they have to be trustworthy before we trust them. It's a self-reference. What are you talking about? Right? And the bottom line is you need to have some sort of expectation that the person talking to you is telling you something important to you. And that fosters what people are describing as trust. That's it. Enchantment is always involved because the world is enchanting, basically, whether we like to acknowledge that or not. I know the science materialists can't do it, right? They can't live in an enchanted world because science can't enchant, right? Or the forms of enchantment that are not available to science are dangerous to science, roughly speaking. That happens. But this is a ridiculous way to talk.
I want to.
So I go independent now because I don't trust institutions because I see how they blatantly lie about things I know very well. And so I just try to do my own thing and tell people, like, starting from universal basic principles of biology, we build up from there. They can check my work at every step of the way.
And if you're
They
wrong,
don't need to accept. I'm not saying trust Colin Wright because I'm PhD in evolutionary biology. It's trust me because what I'm saying makes sense and you can follow
and if
everything I'm saying.
if you're wrong, are you willing to change your mind?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you can follow my chain. What if I can't follow your chain? What if I can't do the math on things? Then I can't trust you then. Sounds terrible, Colin. It sounds awful. I already said, like, I ain't trusting you anyway for lots of good reasons that are oh, his values don't seem to exist. He seems to be playing this agnostic game of objective material reality, and yet sneering at people who have a different view emotionally of the values that he's referencing without ever referencing the values. I find out this very sneaky, by the way. I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but also, what are you doing? So no, I'm not going to trust you because you're not trustworthy, because you don't know where you stand, and you're not willing to take a stand, and you're not willing to stand by that stand. And instead, you just want to be out alone, independent, and not try to revivify the institutions and say, no, you're wrong about biology. You can check it. Why is the burden on me to check your work and believe you, and not on the institutions to check your work and believe you? That's a good question. Huh. Oh, weird. Huh? But this is what happens with the equality doctrine. It spreads everything out, flattens the world. Oh, you know, you and I can just tell you something, you check my work, and then you can trust me. What? That is, I hate to break it to you, that is the pattern of a con man. I mean, it's not, con men aren't the only one that use that pattern, but also they do use that pattern. They use the be trustworthy, right? Be trustworthy, get them to trust you more, and then betray them. Pattern. Like, that's a pattern of a con man. That's pretty much the basics. It's not the only way con men con people, but it's the basics of being a con man right there. Why is that system better? It doesn't sound better. It actually sounds worse. And why aren't you fixing the institutions? Why can't the institutions use that same mechanism to be fixed? These are valid. I'm not saying I have answers, because these are much better questions to ask than whatever gobbledygook they're discussing now.
Okay, let's go back to what you said. I thought it was fascinating. Our institutions are telling us that sex is a spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And you can change sex.
right. So if our institutions are primary, prestigious, legacy academic institutions, the most prestigious in the Western world, are mistaken about that, I honestly think it's reasonable for someone to ask. If they can be wrong about something so basic about that, why can't they be wrong about producing offspring with your first cousin? Like, I don't believe you when you tell me that marrying your first cousin is going to produce all these genetic anomalies, because that data comes from the very same institutions that tell us that sex is a spectrum. So,
Wow. It just, I love institutions telling you things, and legacy, and you know, again, they're mistaken. You mean they're lying? Because they're lying. You know that, right? Like, mistaken or not, it's a lie. It's just a flat out lie. It's not a lie. It's not redeemable. It's a lie. It's a deliberate, could know better lie, right? Period. End of statement. I don't know why we can't say that. I will say it. It's a lie. Masking up, a lie. Viral spread, a lie. Fake news flu shots, lies. Fake news virus scamdemic, lies. All lies. These are just lies. They're not mistaken. People weren't confused. I mean, some people were confused, right? But the people in the institutions knew better and did it anyway. And they lied. And they're bad people for that. Period. End of statement. This is not hard. I don't know why you can't go there. You need to be able to go there, though. I do know why you can't go there, because you're a leftist. My bad. You need to be able to go there, because we can't fix it if we don't identify, oh, this person's lying about that. Oh, this person can't do the basics. They need to kick them out of the institution now. We have to do that. You're not going to fix the problem if all you do is go, well, they were mistaken. They weren't mistaken. They knew what they were doing, and they're bad people. Get rid of them. And you know what? If they didn't know what they were doing, punish them anyway. But get rid of them. We know they need to go. Like, whether you did it by accident or by ignorance or by maliciousness, you still have to leave the institution and never return. Period. End of statement. Like, that still has to happen, irrespective of any additional punishments that may be due because you're an evil, lying scumbag. Because some of them were, and we should identify those and punish them appropriately. We shouldn't give everybody equal punishment here, but we should definitely get everyone who did that out, irrespective of their reasons or reasoning or mistakenness or ignorance or whatever other ridiculous excuse. If you can't do the thing, you can't do the thing. We should stop you from doing the thing, period. But this is really, again, what this is all about. Stopping people from doing bad things. There are bad things. This is not hard. We should stop them from doing the bad things. I am not convinced that any of these so-called genetic issues are bad things, by the way. I just want to be 100% clear about that. I'm not saying they are, and I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying, look like it to me. I ain't going to do the math, right? And it's the other thing. Like, this may be very basic for you guys. It only is very basic for most people. Right? I can't even do math, although I know statistics way better than these two clowns. That's for sure. But I did study statistics quite extensively because I had to. I was doing some data science work. I needed to know this stuff. Nassim Taleb can straighten you out about statistics, by the way. There's other ways, but he's really good on this stuff. He's got white papers and everything. You don't have to read the books, although everybody should read all his books are great. He's got white papers. He points this out. He's got little MOOCs online, course things that he's done for free on YouTube. It'll help you out a lot. But then you know who's lying and who's not. And a guy like Taleb's not afraid to call people liars and frauds, right? And if you see a fraud and you don't say fraud, you are a fraud. I think that's correct. That's what Taleb says. I think it's absolutely correct. Why do we say they're mistaken? They're frauds. They're academic frauds. They're intellectual frauds. They're frauds. Period. End of statement. Not hard.
Well, I think you're full of shit.
Well, it's mostly people on the right, I would say, that are, distrusting the institutions. The left is probably all about, trusting the institutions. And they're the ones, they're not really denying the fact that you're going to have this high instances of genetic anomalies and diseases if you have first cousin marriage. They're essentially just saying that, well, they're either ignoring those completely or they're saying that, like, oh, the cultural benefits, like, outweigh those or something. There's, we can't criticize this
Closeness
practice.
of communities.
Yeah. So they're just, I don't see anyone disagreeing with the science on inbreeding. They're just basically saying that there's some greater thing. Just like during COVID, like, oh yeah, the disease is okay, but like, social justice is more important than spreading disease. So we're going to let people march in the streets and protest en masse, even though we weren't letting people go to their grandma's funeral or something like that. There's something, an overriding moral principle that's guiding them to say, we don't care about genetic mutations in these populations. We don't care if the people during this Black Lives Matter protests are all it's going to be a super spreader event for COVID. There's something else that, is
more important.
A moral.
Now we've brought up morality, finally. Wow, that took more than half the video just to bring up the core issue of morality, which is what they've been discussing this whole time without realizing it, apparently, because a little on the slow side, I guess. Unbelievable. Yes. Again, this goes back to the Peterson question. Is it valid scientific endeavor to crossbreed anthrax and Ebola? Because anthrax spreads very easily and Ebola is extremely deadly. And I would say no, because it's immoral. But you have to do that on moral grounds. It's the Aesop problem. You can't do that on scientific grounds because science doesn't have guardrails, which Colin has mentioned, and then just completely oblivious to the fact that morals aside, your values are going to determine whether or not you care about the facts and what facts you care about. So you're trying to solve a problem that you have correctly identified as partially, at least, a moral problem using facts. And those two things have no overlap. This is still the Aesop gap. Why don't these people understand? They should read our book, One Once Ever. I swear. Like, really? Like, why are we confused? Izot gap is famous. Everybody should understand this and know you can derive it yourself just by observing the world around you. You don't need to read fancy papers by long dead so-called philosophers, even though there are no philosophers past Plato and Aristotle.
Imperative is eclipsing all the negative aspects of that type of thing.
So where has the right failed?
Look at this. Oh, we can't just criticize the left. We also have to criticize the right because fairness and equality or something. This is nonsense talk. No, the right are the good guys. How about that, Peter? Huh? How about that? They are. They're not perfect, though. Oh, no. This is always the problem. They're not perfect. Idealists. Ideologue. Interesting. Yeah. So why do we have to criticize the right? Why do we criticize everybody? We're just going to criticize everybody because we're so awesome and we're so perfect ourselves that we're going to criticize everybody. Is that what you're going to do? Really? Okay.
Oh, man. I believe they're failing a lot with autism. I think they've gone from being just, skeptical of the mRNA COVID vaccine, which, there was information that was incorrect at the time that we now know higher rates of myocarditis, for instance, for men, for younger men.
No, the fact is we knew that before, and Colin doesn't know that, but I knew that before. I knew that well before 2020 because it's in the literature. But you guys don't do your freaking research, okay? mRNA was studied for 10 years before this. It was never successfully used. That's a fact. That was a fact that was being pointed out at the time. And maybe Colin missed it. And maybe Peter missed it. Also, then you're not the guys. If that's the sort of thing you missed, you weren't paying attention. And I get that. The world is attention. Jonathan Peugeot says that. Absolutely true. You guys are not the guys. You should not be preaching on this subject because you both missed the boat completely. All of the science is completely against the entirety of the narrative of the COVID fake news virus pandemic. Period. And it always was. Until you come to terms with this and figure out why that would be true and what happened, you're making it worse. Much worse.
Yeah, at least for the Moderna and I believe Moderna and Pfizer. So there's things we know now that we didn't know, but I do see like more rampant just overall I wouldn't even call it skeptic, just a complete denial of vaccine technology almost across the board. I see it. I just look at the comments.
Okay. Skepticism over vaccine technology is totally valid. Because if you're paying attention, not only did you guys scam-demic us a fake news flu shot, which definitely happened, well, what did you think that was going to cause people to be happy? Well, and why wouldn't they be skeptical? If you pulled that trick once, why wouldn't you pull it again? Right. They should be skeptical. That is the correct answer. That is the survivalist answer. That is the evolutionary answer. Don't believe these people. They blatantly, knowingly lied to you the first time. Yeah. Maliciously, for sure. Not all of them, but also don't care. Some of them certainly did. That's all I need to know. I don't need more information. More information won't help. It'll make it worse. You get flooded out, cognitively overloaded, and then you can be convinced that you can be the opposite sex the next thing you know. Yeah, I'm not going down that road. Okay? This is ridiculous. Okay? There's a bigger issue here, though. The thing that people fail to see about the vaccine skeptics is that because they're on the left, they're a little stupid and they can't pay attention to nuanced arguments. One of the arguments that the vaccine skeptics make, which is an excellent argument, is that the delivery mechanism of the vaccine has changed. It's the delivery mechanism is causing a problem, like mercury. Or I think the other one is not thallium. It's something like that. It's a TH word, I think, right? In other words, the vaccine's perfectly effective, but the delivery mechanism has been changed or allowed to change by the government, or usually both, obviously. And therefore, there are higher rates of autism. I'm somewhat sympathetic to that argument, right? I think, however, autism is overdiagnosed. We have this knowledge engine model. I'll link it here, video. And I think there's lots of reasons for autism that have nothing to do with material reasons, we'll say, right? And so, yeah, the incidence of autism are up. The incidence of video game use are up. I think those are completely related. I have good reason to think so. Again, see that knowledge engine video. Maybe people disagree. I'd love to have the conversation with them. No one will have that conversation with me, and fair enough, I would destroy them. But I like doing that, so I think they should try, just because I'm bored. These are valid concerns. Something changed about the vaccines, and that seems to have correlated with autism. So there's a correlation there. It's not like they're not using scientific methods to have a reasonable conclusion. It's a reasonable scientific conclusion to talk about vaccines and autism. Totally reasonable. So I don't know why they're acting like this is, strange or bizarre or even a mistake. It's certainly not a mistake. I don't think it's good, but it's out of my hands, man. I wish it hadn't happened. I had this conversation with many people. I said, the problem is pushing this fake news flu shot is going to cause people to be skeptical about vaccines when we find out it doesn't work. And in fact, has the opposite of the intended effect, because it has a different mechanism of action as a vaccine, but they're using the word vaccine. That was the mistake. Had they said, no, this is a fake news flu shot that we think works, but it's not a vaccine, maybe the vaccine skepticism people would have less to go on. But because they chose to lie, cheat, and steal their way into getting their way, we have this problem. Okay? Don't blame that on the right. They didn't do that at all. But don't blame the right for that. They're having a correct, scientifically correct, precise, and accurate decision about this. Don't blame them. That's ridiculous.
Sometimes. So there's this, it's exploded into just a total rejection of all this stuff. Anything that has any kind of political valence to it is just now completely rejected. They fail.
That's not a political valence, dude. There's scientific, the science would point to, don't take these shots. We don't know what the hell's in them. Obviously. They said the shot would do X and it did the opposite of X. It's a good hint not to take any of their other shots. It really is. I don't know what else to tell you.
A lot on evolution, which is close to me because I'm an evolutionary biologist, so I see people.
Tell me how they've failed on that. I see that they've had a catastrophic failure on that, but tell me how they've failed on that.
I mean, many of them just don't believe it at all. So they just, they think we were just created de novo 6,000 years ago, and here we are. Yeah.
Don't believe it at all. Don't believe what at all? What is evolution, Colin? Because I've got my definition, right? Evolution, or evolutionary theory, is a couple of theories, a bunch of hypotheses, a bunch of untestable crazy ideas, and mostly inference. That's what it is. So I don't believe any of the inference, because you can scientifically disprove most of those inferences, by the way, but you guys never do that. So you don't know that that's true, because you just never bothered to do it. It's confirmation bias. Trying to confirm evolution, you never look at the cases where evolution contradicts your little evolutionary inferences. As I pointed out earlier, your evolutionary or biological or genetic inference is that Sentinel Island shouldn't exist. Most of New Guinea shouldn't exist. They should have wiped themselves out genetically a long time ago, but they didn't. That's because your inference from evolution is incorrect. That's why. And I can tell you that with 100% certainty because observation. And because also you can just go and do the math, but you know what? You didn't. You didn't. You talk about everybody else doing the basic math, and then you don't do this basic math. If you're not trying to disconfirm your theory, it's not a theory. It's not a hypothesis. It's a piece of garbage thought that you had one day in the shower. And you should have let it go down the drain with the dirty water. I don't know what else to tell you. And then you guys act all about it. The reason why they clean your clock on these arguments regularly is because you can't explain the important thing to them. And you're dismissive like this. That's why you created that monster of disbelief in evolution. Because you don't even have a good definition of it. And a lot of the things you say about it are wrong, observably incorrect, did not happen that way at all. and you don't want to admit it. And I wouldn't either. I get that. But that's too bad. That's why you're losing this battle continually. You continue to lose this battle. You're not taking the hint. It's because your approach is wrong, your system is incorrect, and you're not looking at the core issue that people care about, which is, where did I come from? Which the book, The Origin of Species, does not explain or attempt to explain, because Darwin was a believer in creation from God. It's not that hard, right? Species is biological ontology. He's explaining and justifying the ontology that he has in the book for biological entities. That's it. He's not explaining the origin of life, which is what everybody cares about. What's the origin of life? Not a bad question. I don't have an answer to that beyond, I guess it's in Genesis. Close enough. I don't think I need to know more than that, because I don't know what good it would do me anyway. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. This is why you lose the argument. You can't fight that. You don't have the tools to fight that. You don't have the language to talk about it. All you can do is chuckle that they don't automatically believe your dogmatic belief that you haven't even defined correctly. Most people actually are fine with evolution. They just don't care about it because it doesn't explain anything. That's sort of my position. I just don't care. It doesn't really explain anything interesting. Not to me. I mean, if I were doing biological science, of course I would care about the origin of species and speciation and things like that. But I don't do that. I don't care about it. I do care about the difference between scripting, programming, and software engineering because I'm in computers. I think those designations are important to maintain. They haven't been maintained. Fair enough. Institutions failing, huh? Fails quicker in technology.
I mean, I get that all the time. And then people get upset with me, but it's like they're still following, like, as an evolutionary biologist on X, and I don't know why they're following me if they didn't want to hear my views on evolution. Yeah, I mean, they've always been bad on evolution. And I try to correct it where I can. But yeah, I get...
I'm gonna argue for you right now. Those are all leftists. I'm sorry. I actually know many conservatives. I was in New England. They're very quiet, by the way. None of them were so unsophisticated as to believe that it was a battle between believing in evolution or not believing in evolution. They just didn't care about evolution. This is fine. It's a type of science. Who cares? Scientific thesis. Unless you're doing work that involves evolution, it's irrelevant to your life, because it is. And they want it to be very important because they know it well, or they think they know it well. I would argue none of these evolutionary biologists really understand the implications of what they're talking about. I've been pointing that out all along here. There's a lot. Like, if you think that's the full attack I could launch against evolutionary biology, then I invite you to challenge me, because they're just one of many, or maybe three of many, many inconsistencies and problems and contradictions within evolutionary biology. And to be fair, again, they look for positive confirmations. They're not looking for, hey, what are the implications? And are these implications contradictory to other conclusions? Which they are, hint, hint, right? And so they're not looking at that, or they'd find it, I hope. Or maybe they're that dumb. I don't know. Could be they can't do the math. Fair enough. Also, they're telling everybody to do the math. I don't know. Maybe you make sure you can do that math first. Just saying. But I don't think these are people on the right. I think these are unprincipled people on the left. Because a principled person doesn't have a conflict between evolution and, alternative explanations, if you will, right? It doesn't exist. That evolution doesn't answer the creation question at all. It never even touches it, right? And there's nothing about God creating the earth that conflicts with setting evolution into motion to do the thing that it does, whatever you may think that is. There's no conflict there at all. You're just pretending like there is. And other people are glomming onto that, probably because you're crazy leftists. That'd be my guess. I'm sorry. This frame of left and right, and the right is doing all these things, I don't see that at all. It just doesn't seem to be happening. I think it's a convenient false dichotomy for these people so they can feel justified and self-important. But I don't think it's at all useful.
I had a lot of pushback there, even though we need evolutionary principles to guide like our medicine, to guide things like.
That's a complete lie. There's no evidence that we need evolutionary principles to guide our medicine. It's ridiculous, completely insane. I don't know what these people. Evolutionary medicine guides our development of vaccines. No, it didn't. I don't know what to tell you. Like, go ahead, try and find something, and I'll show you that you're wrong. I know this. So I've had this discussion with PhDs at Harvard and MIT. I'll have it with you too. That statement is fundamentally incorrect in all possible ways. I bet you cannot find a single example as evidence of that evolutionary principles guiding medicine thing. Almost all the great discoveries in medicine were already done. There are refinements on them. You could argue that those refinements are part of this evolutionary medicine. The last time we tried to go into like evolutionary medicine would be mRNA, and we see how that worked out. So you're just wrong, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
Like epidemiology and track mutations of viruses and things like that.
Tracking mutation of virus doesn't change anything. So, like, who cares? Right? And you can argue, oh, no, we develop flu shots. The way we develop flu shots is we wait for the Australians to get infected, and then we see what they have, and then we develop off of that. I guess that's useful. Also, there's no evolution involved. That's just simple. Oh, they get it first. Let's let them suffer, and then we'll give ourselves a shot against it. Oh, this doesn't sound super great. I mean, maybe it's the best we can do. Fair enough. There's no evolutionary principle guiding that, though.
Yeah, it's all really important.
So just on a personal level, like, that must be incredibly frustrating to you.
I'll give talks about like the biology of sex, and I'll refer to these as like these evolved reproductive strategies, and I can just see, I've given talks at churches about this stuff, and I can just see like.
Okay. You want a contradiction? This is fantastic. Oh, these people on X follow me and I say I'm an evolutionary biologist, and then they're not going to believe me about the biology. Okay, fair enough, dude. Like, sure. But then he goes to churches and gives talks with evolution. What did you think was going to happen, Ace? You can't really be that kind of out of it, can you? It's the same problem in reverse. You're doing the same thing you're accusing them of doing. I don't know what to tell you. Like, and fair enough, it's human behavior. 101. Who cares? Why is this interesting?
Like a quarter of the crowd, like their faces just change when I talk about these evolved strategies. And, so a lot of them, it's weird because we come to the same conclusion. There's only two sexes, but they're just like, well, that's because in Genesis it says God made man and woman. I'm just like, okay, well, that can't be the reason that you give other people, like the left is just going to totally disregard everything you say.
The left is going to totally disregard everything you say too, dude. That's because that's what they do. And that's what they've been doing. So who cares? If they want to float in hell for being disbelievers, let them. I'm okay with that. Not everyone gets in. I'm okay if none of them get in. Sounds good to me, actually. Rather fitting, as it were. Why is this a battle to convert the left into your science religion? That's what it sounds like. Oh, and you want to take all the church people with you? Maybe their eyes glaze over on your evolutionary fitness arguments because A, they're actually wrong, by the way, because just a story you're telling yourself about how something unfolded in the past, or rather why the thing unfolded the way it did in the past, maybe both. But ultimately, what if they can't follow your argument because it's just too complicated? That's actually more likely. And why is that a bad thing? They don't need your argument to know there's two sexes. There's a simpler argument. Why don't we go with the simpler argument? It'll reach more people because not everybody has the same level of cognitive ability. So actually, you seem to be fighting in favor of the church here, buddy.
And you don't need to believe it. There's actually a biological reason why there's only two sexes too. So,
there's no biological reason. I'm sorry. That doesn't exist. There are creatures that can reproduce without sex at all. And so there's no biological reason. It's that simple. Like, this is wrong.
I try to give people just like that, the biology for it. And they can still ultimately believe it was just because God made it that way if they want to. But
Yeah, so
at least I try to give them the secular scientific argument. So when they're talking to people on the left, they can actually try to convince them with the facts rather than just, allude to their faith.
You can't convince the left with your facts. Why could they? And you have a better command of them. Oops. And why do you want them on that mission? Like, why are you trying to convert them into evangelicals for your scientific cause? I don't get it. Very evangelical of you. Also weird.
Yeah, that's interesting. So they're epistemically lucky in a sense.
Yeah.
They've got
Epistemically lucky? No, they have a better system that requires less cognitive power and is therefore, cognitive energy, I guess. Yeah, I'll go with cognitive energy. Requires less cognitive energy to understand and implement, and therefore reaches more people automatically. I don't think that's luck. I think it's a really good idea. But you know what, Peter? You can go with your luck if you want.
born in a place that had the, so that I would imagine, because I'm not a biologist, but I become incredibly frustrated in these conversations because people will weaponize data and evidence to support their ideological assumptions.
The way you do? The way evolutionary biologists do? Weird. They're using words and facts and evidence as weapons. So your earlier thesis that if we just get these facts to people, this evidence to people, that they'll change their mind, can't be true if what you're saying now is also true. Because they can use them any way they want. And again, the better conversation is, what's that about? Like, I get that that's true. I see that you don't see the contradiction that you're speaking about here compared to what you were saying earlier. But like, maybe this is just too much for you.
And I don't know, I personally see that, there's talking to Reed about this, I personally see this problem getting worse before it gets better, because I think it's pretty bad right now.
Why would the problem get worse before it gets better? I think he's right, by the way. I mean, kudos. Yes, it's going to get worse. There's going to be more chaos, right? As we try to flatten the world, and you like to flatten the world down to propositions, right? And facts and evidence. As you continue to flatten the world, there's less cohesion and there's more chaos. And this problem is worse. All true.
I remember when I used to go to atheist conferences, I would say something and someone would come up, well, I don't believe in God, but, you went off about supernatural realm or what have you, but, there's a total, I believe in, demons and angels or whatever it is. And I was always so struck by that. Like, skepticism, atheism, any of this stuff, it does not make you smarter. Like,
oh, but you guys all pretend like you're smarter because of your skepticism. Oh, how interesting. What a wonderful observation, Mark. I wonder if you have a video on that. I do. I have a video on Socrates' skepticism. Yeah, because they associate skepticism with Socrates. It's not the only reason, but they associate skepticism with Socrates, and Socrates with being smart or wise or both. And that is their highest value in the age of gnosis, right? Is this knowledge. And then it doesn't work. Really, your skepticism alone doesn't work, because when you're skeptical of a pre-existing system that's been around and working for over 2,000 years and held the world together, strange. Anyway, things start to break apart, chaos ensues, and things get a lot worse. Weird. I couldn't have predicted that, I guess.
so I think one way to think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's been my experience, just dealing with a lot of the new atheist community. Some of them are now the most rabid.
They're crazy.
People I've
I
ever
just
met,
astonishingly.
Yeah.
The incidents.
Oh, the new atheists are crazy, but the religious people are laughable. You're running out of options, boys. Or are you saying, no, the new science religion can save you, but you just have to listen to us, the independent science priests, who won't lie to you like the institutions did? Because whether you like it or not, that's the story you're just telling right now. I'm not buying it. I think it's garbage. I think you're both garbage for saying it. And I wish you could see how silly you are. I don't understand why you can't see the problem. You clearly see the pieces of the problem. You just can't put it together. You can't put it together. It's sad. It's sad.
They're more into the whole gender, sex cult stuff than any other group that I know, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
It's almost like they became extra crazy as a result of this.
Yeah.
It's almost like that. The reason why it's almost like that is because it is like that. And the reason why it's like that is because religion does put things together. Religio, right? This binding, this way of connectedness. You need religion to avoid this problem. Weird. I'm glad Peter sees it, although I don't think he does, even though all the pieces are right there. That in the language, look up religio, Peter, right? Oh. And then you could do it backwards. I'm dyslexic, so I'm highly dyslexic. It works great. So you can say, oh, when you don't, whatever you have binding you becomes your religion. Yes. And then because we are fundamentally religious creatures, because we're cooperative creatures, right? We have religion binds us together, right? Connects us. What that means is that we want to get together, so we will always form a religion. So now it's really a question of what's a good lasting religion, right? Just to keep the evolutionary retards happy, right? That we'll say has lasted through time and can adapt, but not too quickly, right? Because you don't want to go off on one of these little evolutionary spirals, and not too slowly because you don't want to get evolutionary stagnated, right? See how the same principle that reality is a self-similar fractal, right? It's the same question for evolution as for religion, because everything, if evolution is correct, everything is embedded within the evolutionary pattern. Shouldn't be too hard to figure out, but I'm sure people that don't get it, it's fine. Then okay, the real question is which religion and why? And it better be a long-lasting one, right? We're not going to tear down the ones we have and build new ones tomorrow, because that would be dumb.
The ones who made out of it, like Michael Shermer's, you, Richard Dawkins, other people, they retained their sanity. They're still fundamentally the same people, but
Shermer did not retain his sanity. Dawkins did not retain his sanity. They're all backtracking, buddy, over time. But of course, you're not accounting for time because history, is beginning now. And so you're not looking at all the past instances of all these people who almost all convert eventually, right? All of them. Scott Adams, most recently, right? Like deathbed confession. Oh, right. Oh, I've got no reason not to. The odds are in my favor. Like, I guess maybe you should have been in the club all along, and you wouldn't have this problem.
When I look back at some of the other people, like the Matt Dillahunties and the P.Z. Myers of the world, like they're just like I worry that they're experiencing some sort of psychosis. Like actually,
they're all in psychosis. Yes. They came apart because they had nothing binding them together.
Tried to watch like recent episodes of the Atheist Experience, and it's just unhinged. Like it's totally different people. And then you see this, it's like a weird pattern that people kind of go down when they've taken, when they adopt the woke ideology. It makes them like really venomous and bitter and angry, like to an extreme degree.
Oh, it's the woke ideology's fault? You mean the atheism, which came first, did not cause the woke ideology? Oh, wait a minute. The atheism came first. Huh. That might be an important clue. No, history is just beginning now. Never mind.
Vipers.
Yeah, it's honestly, yeah.
And it makes them unkind, I found. Makes them uncharitable, makes them not willing to listen. And many...
Not willing to listen, Peter? Respond to any of my tweet responses, dude. You too, Colin. Who's not willing to listen? Almost everybody. Bigger problem than just them.
Many of those same people would listen to those Christian arguments. I mean, they think they're nonsense. I think they're nonsense. Or not just Christian, but broadly. But this has kind of damaged people. Like I don't like to name names, but because I don't want to give people the oxygen of publicity, as Dawkins said. Oh, how was your interview with Dawkins? I haven't watched it. It's in my queue.
That was an amazing experience. It was incredibly nervous, everything building up to it. I've never interviewed anyone in my life, and he was the first person I interviewed, and it was live in front of probably 3,000 people, so
Yeah.
it went well, though.
And where was it?
It was in Portland.
Oh,
Of all
gosh.
places.
Serious.
I know.
Where was it? Was it a theater?
It was, I can't remember the name of the theater, but it was right downtown Portland.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did an event with him at a university where I will not name, I used to teach, and it was madhouse. And then the second event, I wanted to bring him to campus, but they were so upset with me for questioning the social justice narrative. I'm like, all right, well, we'll do it off campus. I don't care. Okay, so what have you been thinking about lately?
I've been thinking a lot about sort of the foundational premise of a lot of the transgender movement stuff. I mean, I've always kind of been one of the more foundational, I guess, issues has to do with the biology of sex, and a lot of everything always comes down to like, can you change your sex? But a lot of the arguments are now, especially when we get into the legal realm, where like, what are they going to argue into the Supreme Court next now that they've lost like the Skirmety case that went to the Supreme Court, went to the Supreme Court. And really what they're probably going to be pivoting to, if they haven't already, is this idea that being transgender is this innate biological trait that you're born with. And they need this because if you have an immutable trait, this sort of triggers a lot of civil rights protections for you, protected class based on this. And so they'll use things like these brain scan studies to try to say, like, we've scanned all the brains
But
of
there
these.
are none, right?
Well, there are brain scan studies that show like a cross-sex skew in the brains of, but I mean,
I know exactly where you're going. Yep.
But they're not controlling for well-known things that we know tend to skew some areas of the brain and brain structures, which is
Oh, so the facts can be manipulated to tell you whatever you want to hear. Huh. I wonder if any science people do that. More things.
sexuality. And so most of the people who identify as transgender are same-sex attracted. And so whenever you control for the number, for sexuality in these data sets, the skew goes away, okay? It goes away completely. And so they're just recapitulating like these old studies that we know of, looking, scanning the brains of people who are homosexual and just generally sex non-conforming. And they're just trying to say that, well, we scanned all these people who identify as trans and we see a similar skew. They're not controlling for those proper variables, and so they're manipulating the data. They're trying to make trans being this like biological thing that you're born with, and it just fundamentally isn't. It's more of like this culture-bound idea that we have about different cultures treat sex nonconformity different ways. If you go to like Samoa, for instance, the fa'afine, these are basically just like these hyper feminine males who like to dress like females, and they don't have any desire to transition whatsoever. And even when you look at like the definitions of what it means to be transgender at like the CDC and the Endocrine Society and places like that, they specifically say it's related to like whether you identify or behave according to like the norms that are traditionally associated with your sex. So traditionally associated with your sex. So traditions seem to matter. So if you can hop on an airplane and suddenly you're not transgender anymore because you went to Samoa, how can transgender be innate if it changes based on geography? So that's an area of focus that me and my girlfriend Christina Buttons were working on, because it's really the last hope that they have to try to get these civil rights protections for transgenders, in which they're going to use to try to say that this is why we need to transition children and all this other stuff.
Wow. So he thinks they're going to use a scientific argument. Is that the argument they used to get the Civil Rights Act passed? No, it's not. It's not. So, of course, he thinks that. He thinks that law is based on science and everything's derived from science, really. I mean, the origin of species life, all science. It's not, though. They may use that argument, but they may not. They may use other arguments. Right? And laws are usually derived on things that are already happening, and then they're instantiated in a law, not the other way around. So whether or not that works well or works properly, we'll say with the Supreme Court at the federal level, it's harder to suss out. not my area. But it's interesting that more science, more understanding from the scientific view what scientific argument they're going to try to make. Why? I don't care. They can pass all the protections they want. It won't change what's going to happen.
From then, why men need to be in female sports, yada yada. So
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I never really understood the argument that was prevalent about a decade, maybe 15 years ago. Oh, homosexuals, it's a choice. Okay, let's just say for a second that that's true. So what? Who cares if it's a choice? It's totally irrelevant who you choose to sleep with, provided they're consenting and over the age of 18. Who cares what you choose? It's your fucking business. Mind your own business. But I always thought it was a weird argument, but I'm wondering if a parallel can't be made to the trans thing, in that my posture has always been, if that's what you want to do, I mean, if you're 18, so I've actually, because of Matthieu Hughes and because of Naheem, I've been, the surgeon, I've been rethinking this as of late. I'm adamantly against anybody under 18 receiving puberty blockers, any medical intervention. I don't care if it's a boy who wants to wear a dress, I have no problem with that, any of that. My concern is with children. Now, Reed and I did a spectrum street epistemology at GenSpect, and Dr. Haim said, well, I can't just perform give a gastric sleeve to someone who just says that they want one. Like, I would lose my license. I might even be imprisoned, but I could certainly, as a minimum, I would lose my license if I just decide, well, the guy comes in, I would need a bag. So, I mean, it's interesting. If you can't do a procedure, it's not an elective procedure. It's not like, we don't do non-cosmetic medical surgery on people for anything else. So this is what's making me rethink the position. So why should we allow it on someone who says they want their penis inverted, or they want...
That's what's making you rethink this? Wow. There are so many better reasons, Peter, but okay. I mean, I guess that is one reason, and it is a valid one. Of course it's cosmetic. It's LARPing, right? They are LARPing, being the opposite sex. And there are bad people who are delighting in that LARPing, knowing the cost. And they know the cost, right? They know what they're doing and what it's going to cost those people to get their desire in the moment. That's really all it is. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. There's willing evil people and willing brainwashed people. And that's really all you need. And we could reverse this if you were making better arguments.
Want a colon vagina.
yeah,
I'm not sure. Like, I'm still thinking out loud.
So I mean, my take on it, I don't think we should be giving like these genital surgeries to individuals just because you're creating a health issue where there, adults too, yeah, you're creating a health issue where there is none, and that's ultimately going to be it's going to weigh on the healthcare system.
Oh my goodness. So the you do you argument that Peter made is being countered at the same time by Colin with the, yeah, but it does affect other people. Right. That's because you live in a world with other people and everything you do matters, as Dr. Jordan Peterson would say. Man, these guys are just really slow. They should just watch Maps of Meaning. Probably all of them. Probably twice, and take notes.
In terms of, your premiums, you go in there, you have a fistula in your neovagina. I mean, this is something you decided to do, and now it's gonna, cost tens of thousands of dollars, and your insurance is covering it, which, these are all passed on to everyone. That's why everyone's premiums are high. So you shouldn't just be able to, like, create a malformation of your genitals and create dysfunction in your body. I mean, I just don't think there's an ethical way you can just remove the function or change the function dramatically in a way where it's not going to function properly, and it's going to have health effects downstream from that. And the main thing with a lot of like the gender affirming care stuff is, they'll say something like, well, just a woman getting a breast augmentation, that's gender affirming care. And it's like, okay, well, they're not getting it covered by insurance. They're not billing it as medically necessary. the people who are identifying as trans, they're saying that this is medically necessary. They want it covered by health insurance. I'm more like, if you're a guy and you're over 18 and you want to get breast implants, like, it's freaking weird, but if you want to do it, this is like, I'm not going to stop you doing it, but like, let's not pretend that it's this medically necessary procedure and that it needs to be covered by insurance other because you're going to kill yourself or something. Like, just it should all just be under cosmetic procedures.
Oh no, silly me. He's not. He makes both arguments now, huh? So, yeah, you shouldn't do things that harm yourself. Also, doctors shouldn't do things to you that harm you. All right, and right, it's almost like we have an oath for that if we were adhering to, because we weren't in the middle of a societal collapse that would solve this problem for us. Apparently, we don't have that anymore, so c'est la vie, I guess. But also, it's okay if you pay for it, even if we're going to pay for it further down the line because it's going to cause a different problem, right? And so, but the interesting thing here is to reverse this argument. If they could do it without the insurance because someone just would do it, then why do they want other people to pay for it? Because now what we're saying is the real battle, and this is the same as the battle with abortion, by the way, it's exactly the same argument. It's not necessarily about what's legal, because 80% of people think abortion should be legal. It's just that most people think it shouldn't be paid for by the government. Any government, state, local, federal, county, none of it, right? So a lot of people support abortion as long as no one pays for it but the poorest person getting it. Isn't that an interesting fact? You can look that up. Well, how interesting, right? So really, this is about, can people enact their fantasies on the dime of someone else, right? Can I have my fantasy at the expense of someone else's effort? How? And they're all socialists too. You don't say. What a weird random coincidence. Huh, weird.
I believe.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So let's say that someone was trying to pass a law that said, before you invert your penis and get a procedure, or, take the skin off your leg or arm and get it. Before you do that, you need to demonstrate, as a matter of fact, that you have X amount of money in the bank, and that's some actuarial table or something for how much future medical costs are going to be. And let's say that number was agreed upon. Like, that's a reasonable number.
Video game reality, anybody? This is like video game logic. This is exactly how video games work. Life is not a video game, Peter. Not a video game. And no, I mean, this is insane. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. Why can't we just say, no, you're never doing this, even though we have the ability to do it? Big surprise. There's lots of things that we have the ability to do that we're not doing. We're just not allowing, ever. That's a good thing, in my opinion. Maybe we have the list wrong, but at least we have one.
Maybe even a little over.
So it wouldn't be like a burden on...
Yeah, it wouldn't be a burden on society, and the person decides they don't want their sex organs, and they're going to be a lifelong medical patient, but they have enough money to cover it.
This is an impossible situation because you don't know what the expense is going to be in the future. Period. End of statement, full stop. But why are we trying to redeem this idea and give these people what they want? Why don't we just say no and deal with a tiny percentage of disappointed people who maybe have a legitimate gripe? Because we do that with every other thing anyway. And I think this is why he's a leftist. Because like, we're not qualified to criticize the left because you're still on the left. You're not qualified to criticize the right because you don't even know what the right is or what they believe. But you think you do, which just makes you arrogant.
Would you support that?
Sure. Yeah, I think...
Sure? I don't care if people are self-harming. Really? You care if they commit suicide, if they're cutting, if they're... Sure. As long as they have the money for it, it's fine.
I mean, yeah.
I guess I would too.
I wouldn't be... Yeah. I mean, it's going to be weird. I don't think it's something we should normalize, but like, it's just... I mean, I guess it's part of the...
Oh, it would be weird. Why would it be weird? That's interesting. There's an interesting judgment there. It's weird, but just because it's weird doesn't mean it shouldn't be okay. Really? Are you sure? Um, you're passing a judgment. Oh, as long as it's not normalized. Well, what? There's a conversation to have. What is normalization? What would make it normalized or not normalized? That's a better question. Right. Right.
A little bit the libertarian in me, where people should be able to do stuff they want to do, as long as it's not affecting anyone else. So if you remove all the
You can't do things in this world without affecting other people. It's just not possible. At the very minimum, you're taking resources out of the medical community to deal with a problem that you created in the past. At the very minimum. So I don't know where you're getting this formula from, but it doesn't work.
not affecting anyone else part of that, by they're paying for it all, they're dealing with all the complications themselves. Sure, I guess that's
Paying people to do things is not affecting them. I don't get it. And to be fair, Colin and Peter have both said, oh, these people shouldn't be sending money to these causes or doing these things or funding these groups. That's the same thing, guys. On the one hand, if they have enough money to do it, they should be allowed to do it. On the other hand, oh, certain things affect other people and certain things apparently don't, even though, of course, they do. Ridiculous. So contradictory.
that seems okay with me, I suppose.
Yeah, that's also my intuition.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that like people have said to me, well, doesn't that compromise? I don't know if anybody said this to me, but I think this is the sentiment. Doesn't that compromise the integrity of the professionals who are doing these interventions, these medical interventions? Like, and then
Probably does.
yeah,
I mean,
doesn't it compromise the whole
gonna
integrity of the system? My response is the whole system is already fucked.
well, that's going to be like private practice, though, and it's like, how are you going to?
Yeah, but why would you worry about something like that when you have major replication crises going on?
Yeah,
That shows
yeah.
that it's ideological.
What? That shows it's ideological? Wow. Look, if your experiment wasn't replicated, you didn't do any science. Science requires replication. Problem solved. Okay, now you know what science is and isn't. So easy it is. Just follow an actual system and hold to it. Instead of allowing it to get corrupted by people writing white papers that can't be reproduced. Oh, it's magic. Why is, I don't know, dealing with the replication crisis more important than dealing with people's lives? I don't know, man. I mean, I guess I know where your values are. Also, they're abhorrent to me, I guess. I'd rather worry about people's lives. That's just me.
Cherry picking.
Yeah, it's going to be so few people that are going to be able to opting for that, who can have all the money set aside, where it's just like, I can't imagine that being
Okay,
a
so
major issue. And if that's the compromise, then it's just like, yes, because right now we're like living in the worst of all possible.
Compromise? What if there is no compromise? You can't compromise with leftists. You're a leftist. You should know that. Leftists just want what they want, when they want, how they want it, and they want other people to pay for it. In all cases. Right? You can cry libertarian all day long and try to claw your way into the moderate camp. Moderates don't believe in libertarianism. It ultimately reduces to leftism. Like, I get to do what I want. It's a hedonistic idea. I get to do what I want as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. But you're on a planet with everybody else, so that's not an option. I don't know what to tell you. How about, I like Jordan Peterson's minimum necessary force, or minimum necessary impact or something. Oh, that sounds better. Right? But this argument doesn't fly at all. It's silly.
For worlds where you got like 12-year-old girls getting their breasts chopped off because they had a 15-minute talk with someone at Planned Parenthood. So yes, I'll take that compromise pretty easy.
So one thing I hear often is, why do you care about this issue with kids so much? Like, why do you? And then people will invariably say, how many people does this affect? And I've read a wide range of numbers. Like you mentioned that kids having double mastectomies. puberty blockers for kids. Do we have accurate numbers on how many kids this affects? Kids specifically.
It's really difficult to get like accurate numbers just because of how disjoint like the entire U.S. healthcare system is. Reuters, they had, I think, in the orders of like tens of thousands of individuals who've had double mastectomies for the purposes of, transitioning, who are minors. There's new data that the Manhattan Institute actually has. We were able to get a bunch of data from various databases that we had to pay for. It turns out that like those numbers from the Reuters study were probably an order of magnitude too small. So maybe we're on the order of 50,000 or more. I'm bad at just like getting the numbers right off the top of my head. But even these are going to be like an underestimate, okay, because you don't have every single individual that's doing this, and every single healthcare insurance provider. And then you also have this other really interesting, well, it's kind of horrifying practice where they're not like putting on what they're charging the insurance for. It's not like gender-affirming double mastectomy. It's usually
right,
something they'll hide it under something else. They'll be like, a breast reduction or something that you would in a look, and it says they're a female on there, or it'll be some other. They had a hormonal endocrine disorder. That's why we gave them cross-sex hormones. But looking at the sheet, you're not able to tell anything. You're like, they say, oh, this is a man, we gave testosterone, even though it's a female you gave testosterone. This is what they're classifying it as.
So what
you
are
have
some
to know,
numbers? Like roughly, can you give a best estimate for how many?
I would need to look at the stats again, but I mean the orders of, I would say maybe around 50,000 for double mastectomies, but I need to double check that.
That's
yeah,
just.
But definitely tens of thousands. And then that's sort of a conservative estimate of what's been going on.
So you can't really check the numbers because the liars, who we know lie all the time about everything, are lying. Oh, I'm getting shocked. Huh? How did we miss that?
Yeah, two things. When people say, "Wouldn't you rather be talking about something else?" My answer is absolutely, 100%. Like,
well,
why isn't this the most important issue? Is it low-hanging fruit for you, do you think? Is that really the problem? Science is under attack. Maybe. That's fine. I wish we'd just wipe it out and get it over with, quite honestly. And this is the low-hanging fruit because you think you can win this battle because these are anti-science people, even though they're using science, I'll say incorrectly, and fair enough they are, to justify it. You're caught in a web. You're caught in a web of your own making. Your science doesn't work the way you think it does, and now it's caught you.
yeah.
I mean, yes and no. So the people who my colleagues why do you care so much about this? Why are you so obsessed with this? And then you look at well, what are they studying at university? They're studying the reproductive behavior of fruit flies, and it's just okay, well, this is at least way more interesting than doing that.
Dissertation was.
At least it's not snobbery and elitism here. This is way more interesting. What? Why? Where did you get all this basic biology from, Colin? All the fruit flies. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, so that's they're nerdy about one super small thing, and then they're asking me why I care so much when what I'm doing actually touches so many other aspects of society.
Yeah, totally.
Children are getting their breasts removed and their healthy body endocrine systems disrupted, and women's sports are getting destroyed. I mean, there's just so much that it touches in the real world that it's of course, this is why I care about this stuff.
Did I tell you, when I was at GenSpect, a parent came up to me. I don't want to gender this person, try to anonymize it, and they were really mad at me to the point of crying because I said, because their son their child wants to transition, and he's quite autistic, and he's 23, and they were very upset about my position because they said that it's, and I'm not denying this, that it's targeting. Andrew Doyle writes about this extensively. People who are same-sex attracted, people who have some degree of autism or on the spectrum somewhat. And it was hard. It was a hard, it was a hard conversation to have.
This person wanted their child to transition?
No,
or
didn't.
Did not? Why were they upset with you?
Because I've adopted
presumably-
the position that, we have to prioritize this hierarchically. Like the
Okay,
kid
yeah.
stuff
No, I
is
agree.
like
Yeah.
absolute. Like that's just a red line.
Yeah.
And
what argument are you going to make? Because right now you're making an implicit kids are more valuable argument. I'm not saying I disagree or anything. I'm just saying that seems to be the argument you're implying, but not actually making, by the way. The argument for kids and adults that Colin made is actually identical. Right? Kids don't have the money, and therefore, right? These are crazy arguments anyway. And you need better arguments. And the reason why you don't have them is because you won't just take the biblical position, which has the argument. And you're kind of screwing yourself by making them your enemy when in fact you're kind of on the same side. You could just adopt the working strategy. I don't know. Be easier.
so I guess I think we need to start as Americans. I don't know. Shermer just released the number of percentage of Americans who think political violence is acceptable, and
Oh my goodness, guys! There's no such thing as political violence. You can't put a modifier on every word and get a new concept. That's not how that works. Violence is violence. There aren't types of violence. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. You can reasonably refer to domestic violence as opposed to random violence. That kind of makes sense. It's a little pointless since most violence is domestic, but political violence can't have any reasonable meaning. Sorry. Ridiculous.
I'm seeing us more divided. And so I think some basic compromises, like I'm pro-abortion in the first trimester.
We're more divided, so we need compromise. Compromise is what got us here, bro. No.
An extraordinary circumstance. I don't know what it would be in the second trimester. I think we have to start making compromise about the trans, the gun. I think we have to. I mean, if we don't, this is just not going to end well. The American experiment.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to end perfectly well, right? Just not for leftists. But I'm okay with that.
Won't go well. But I think that it was hard to, because I'm not unsympathetic to that individual's plight with her kid. But have you had someone?
Yeah. You do need to prioritize one thing, because we can get mass acceptance on the minors thing, like don't do this to kids, and that's something that I think most people at least realize that we just need to put a stop to that, and then we can talk about 18 and up and whether that's okay. I would agree with the person.
Oh, they want to do it one step at a time instead of just making one argument that covers both conditions perfectly well. Because they don't want to draw a line. They want to sort of ease their way into maybe a compromise. They're leftists. This is classic leftist behavior. They're never going to get to step one. They can't agree on step one. And, the sane ones were already an exclusionary principle. You have to be sane, whatever that means, to agree or not agree. Well, no, at some point you just have to ignore the people that don't agree and tell them, too bad. So sad. Cry me a river over there. That's the way the world is. It's always been that way.
That you talk to that it's probably not okay for their son or daughter to have these procedures. Basically just because you turn 18 doesn't mean you no longer have a right to evidence-based medicine. The reasons they were giving for gender-affirming care for kids is just as based on pseudoscience, the sex spectrum type stuff, brain sex. It's just as pseudoscientific for adults who want this stuff. So if your doctor is telling someone just because they're 18 or 30 or whatever that, oh yeah, you were born with a girl brain and a boy body and we can change your sex with stuff, that is still malpractice in my case, in my view, because they're giving this person false information about the nature of their condition.
Oh, the nature of their condition. I wonder what determines the nature of your condition and how you can tell what nature determined about your condition. because it's still the core question. But I, obviously I like the argument. Like, yeah, the reasons are the same. It may be more obvious in children, right? You may be able to get a better emotional response out of people if you say they're hurting children in a way that the children themselves don't realize is going to cost them later in life. All valid arguments. Also, those arguments also apply to adults of any age. Just saying.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we shouldn't say this is a life-saving care type of thing for them as well.
That's what Billboard Chris.
I would put it into
yeah.
the realm of like, again, as we mentioned, like if you're independently wealthy and you can afford this stuff, like these are cosmetic treatments that you want to get, and maybe we should let some people get cosmetic procedures, but it's not life-saving. It's not because you're born in the wrong body. It's not all this stuff. It's just something that you want to do.
Okay.
Oh, we should let. Who's the we, and who's going to do the letting and not letting? This is always what the leftists leave out of the conversation. All right, this is the trick of socialism, which of course I have a video on. Check out that video if you don't understand this concept. But this is what they're doing to fool you into believing that they're giving you an answer, because we're going to let or not let people. Who is going to do the letting and not letting? How does that mechanism work? Well, they never bother with that part. They just want somebody else to implement their bad idea. Or maybe they have a good idea, but they want somebody else to implement it. I was like, well, proof's in the pudding, as they say. You shall know them by their fruits. Yeah, the implementation is what matters. The rest of the stuff is nonsense, basically. So then the question becomes, oh, what do we do about that? Because that is the question. What do we do? Like, who lets and not lets, and why? How do we validate and justify that? Because that's the real set of questions that we actually have to answer. So Colin's not able to do that, by the way. He's not doing it here, that's for sure. But I don't think he's able to do it. And yeah, if somebody has money, they're going to do what they want anyway, irrespective of whether or not you, quote, let them. This is going to happen. I don't know what else to tell you. Historically, that's how it works.
Okay, so if we do recategorize these things as cosmetic, what if someone says, well, hey, man, I want...
What are you about to say?
I don't even know what I'm about to say, but like some completely deranged thing. But it's cosmetic.
I mean, I've seen like the lizard people. They cut.
Yeah,
they
I
do
had
the
a
forked
waitress
tongue
like
and
that
they do
once.
the horns, and it's just like
he kept going like that.
Freaking weird, but it's just like, all right.
Yeah, you want to split your own tongue? It's your tongue. It's not my tongue.
It's fine. Whatever.
I do struggle with that. I think I'm wrong about this, which is a weird thing to say. I think my reasoning is not correct, but my current thinking is like, if we're willing to make compromises, maybe, just maybe, in the polity, the vox populi, the voice of the people, maybe other people are willing to make compromises. And if we say, listen, the line in the sand is kids under 18, and I'll tell you what, you want to sterilize autistic kids, gay kids, we're going to let you chop off their penises. Great. But I realized, but
how horrifying. Like, and this idea that we're all equal. Well, maybe if we want to compromise, they want to compromise. I don't think you understand what compromise is or how it works. You're not proposing a compromise at all. That's not what you're doing. You're drawing a hard line in the sand, which I almost agree with part of. No, this is really easy. You were created in the image of God. Don't destroy it. Not hard. Why? Simplicity. The utilitarian argument for me is like just simpler. It just cuts out all these discussions that we don't need to have, that are impossible to resolve because they're matters of opinion. Problem solved. See how easy that is? You don't have to stress about it at all, right? That's why it works so well. Because it works for the simplest case. Simple answers are usually better.
it's never okay to lie to people, especially in a medical we can't be lying to people. But it does seem to be a way forward that some people, and again, I think I'm wrong about this, but I'm completely willing to change my mind, that some people have to suffer irreparable damage and made their lives miserable for the rest of their lives so we can move forward as a society. Or is that
That's gonna happen anyway. It's always happened about all kinds of things. This is weird, kind of late to observe the world being that way all along.
Completely
Well, I mean,
demented.
that's where we are now. We've all the detransitioners coming out. Like, the more of them that are stepping forward, telling them their horrific stories, like it's ultimately their voices that are going to be the ones that end all of this, because they were irreparably harmed from this type of thing.
I completely
you know, if I'm
agree.
given like this binary choice between like the status quo we have now, or, you know, we'll just ban it for kids, and then anyone else over 18 can do it. Like, I'd hit that second button, because that's a better world than
It's a better
what
world.
we have
That's
right now.
what I'm thinking.
But we
You haven't made the case that it's a better world. Not that I disagree. Why are there only 2 buttons again? You people and your trolley problems. Like, you don't even understand what the trolley problem is or how to use it. And here you are in the other false binary. Will you stop with the false dichotomies? Like, please? Like, really? I get that maybe your brain can only accommodate 2 options that are mutually exclusive. But there are more options. The reality is pretty big.
But I mean, the choice isn't really just like a binary. We can ban it for kids, and then we can continue having conversations about, you know, is this actually evidence-based for adults too? And I think we shouldn't just stop at criticizing this for kids. We need to bring these arguments to the public.
You didn't make the evidence-based argument for kids. You made the evidence-based argument that applies to all people, which I'm fine with, but what are we doing? Why are we compromising? If you have the answer, you have the answer. Why do you need to compromise? I don't understand. It's very, very confusing.
And here, you know, like the Supreme Court, we had Chase Strangio, the ACLU lawyer, the trans-identified female, just totally admit that like all the suicide stats are just like made up and like on the spot. We need more of this stuff. Let them actually make their arguments publicly.
Yeah, they won't do that.
The more you get them speaking,
they won't do that.
And if they're in a courtroom and they have to do it in the courtroom.
Yeah, they won't do that.
Well, if they're in a court, they
Well,
have
if they're
to.
in a court,
people lie in court all the time. Ask me how I know, having been into court and watched people lie, cheat, and steal, and watch the court not care and not go after evidence. So I like your theory. It's wrong. It's totally wrong. I mean, you grab the court records on my case. You can look me up. It's fine. Massachusetts, was it Marlborough District Court? And then Worcester. And then Richland County Court in South Carolina. There you go. You can look it up. People lie all the time. It's right there. It's in the transcripts and stuff. They're lying. It's right there.
but they won't speak to you and me.
Yeah, I mean,
we invited the WPATH people 2 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, one of my best experiences was when I was flown out to testify in Texas for, I think it was SB 14. It was a child transition type case. They wanted me to argue that there's 2 sexes and stuff. And the other side, the ACLU lawyers wanted to, so I was examined, then they wanted to do a cross-examination. And so the ACLU lawyers brought me up there, and they basically wanted to like try to argue with me about why there's not only 2 sexes and all that stuff. And it was one of the most fun I've ever had, because like I knew what they were going to say before they said it. Like, I've been dealing with this stuff for 7 years, and I wish there was a recording of it. There's a transcript. It's really absurd. You can see what they say, but we need these moments where we can just, you know, just show the emperor has no clothes whatsoever live, so these types of things can go viral. And they're in the courtroom. They're getting destroyed.
I hate to break it to you guys, but you vastly misunderstand the point of the story of the emperor that has no clothes. I don't know what to tell you. You're misreading the message in that story so badly, it cracks me up. So thank you for making me laugh.
They fear like the sunlight more than anybody, because they're going to have to actually justify that you can be born in the wrong, but they got to say that insane crap.
So I guess what I was saying, I'll refine it, is that my position is a placeholder position. We ban all this stuff for kids, and then we have that conversation, and we can change it. But we say, for now, we're fine with this, because I don't think we're going to solve this whole thing overnight.
I think you're going to have to solve it overnight very severely and quickly. That's going to happen one way or the other, Peter. You're just not paying attention to history and how these things work. Yeah, you sort of gradually eroded your way into it, but it's not going to stop gradually. And it shouldn't. It should stop immediately, like tomorrow, immediately. Not that hard. We could do it. But people like you are going to screw it up. And that's why I'm not a fan.
I think the more we're willing to compromise, the better the society is. Okay, a couple more things. Is there anything you want to ask me about anything?
Oh God.
No, you want to ask me? Oh God, I'm kind of tired of
I
that
didn't
one.
think
But
about what I want to ask you yet.
you don't have to ask me anything if you don't want to.
I don't have anything right now.
All right. Is there anything I should have asked you but I didn't ask you?
I think we covered all the stuff we set out to do.
Yeah. What do you think the biggest thing people watching this, if they want to look into cousin marriage more, or they want to look into trans more, or sex as a spectrum more, where could they go? What should they do?
I mean, the obvious one is just like basic biology textbooks is one place you can go for these things. If you want more of like, maybe easy read type material on very specific issues like the sex spectrum, I write about this stuff all the time. So I have a website, www.realitiesLastStand.com. I have articles about...
You've got to be kidding me. We're far from reality as, pretty much anybody.
why sex is binary and why it matters. I'll be having an article that's going to be coming out talking about the cousin marriage to try to break down all the simple biology for people to know, an easily digestible way to you can see, here are just the actual facts, and then, hey, you can make your value judgment after the fact on these types of things.
Right. That I just really want to stress that. You're not telling people, you're not giving them a value. You're telling them that this is the evidence, this is the best data and research we have based on biology. And what you do with that data is up to you.
It's up to you. They're putting the burden for all the data and the correctness of the data on you, and they're putting the decision on you. And Peter's using the term value, and what he means is the term judgment is what he's describing. Yeah, you're not telling people what judgment to make. You make a judgment based on a value, by the way. That's the difference. Right? You're not telling you what judgment to make, putting the burden of the judgment on you. Do you know why that doesn't work, Peter? No, I guess you don't. You haven't figured it out. Okay, well, someday maybe you'll get there. I hope. We can all hope. Not that hard, but...
But this is biology.
Yeah.
It is not the evil eye.
It is not.
Oh, biology is better than the evil eye? Evil eye is simpler. Convinces a lot more people. The reason why you're losing these arguments, by the way, is because you won't make a judgment for people that they can just latch onto and go with. But the guy who says evil eye, he is making a judgment for you that you can latch on and just go with. That's why you're losing the argument. I don't know what to tell you.
Not the evil eye. And I would encourage people, just if they think it's okay for one group and not another, to really interrogate themselves. Why? Why is it okay for just this one population, but not maybe the Appalachian hillbillies or something? Why is it okay for a trans man who's biologically female to, remain on high levels of testosterone during gestation and having their baby's genitals, masculinized unnecessarily?
In utero, that happens in utero. Yeah.
Whereas, if a woman were to somehow be just doing this because she was a bodybuilder and wanted to keep pumping iron while pregnant, we would, think that this is a totally immoral thing. Be aware of the double standards, because it's really easy to make exceptions for yourself or your communities and type of stuff. But I mean, we need to be as objective as possible. And I think we should just make sure if it's bad for this one group, it's probably bad for the other groups. And I think the information that I'm giving on biology is going to give you the tools so you can find out what you actually think about these things.
Colin Wright, thank you very much. Thanks for...
Wow. He's giving you the tools. That's all you need, is a bunch of tools, and you can apply them. Even though earlier they said those tools are being misapplied and have been misapplied, and they don't even see the contradiction. Obviously, your system doesn't work. It's how we got here, guys. You open the science door, and now you can't close it. The flood from academia is here. And now we have the nitwits talking about it and not even seeing the irony. And yeah, you still have to make the actual judgment. Anyway, guys, this was fun. The second half here was a little bit tougher, but it was fun. I mean, I feel bad for these guys. I really do. I actually, I bet if I could hang out with Peter and have a drink, I don't drink, but I'll have a root beer, he can have a beer. I think it would be fun. I think it'd be interesting. I would have a wonderful conversation. Hopefully we wouldn't try to talk about any of this because he's not good at it, but I'm sure you can talk about something quite intelligently and with wonderful ability to reason, which he didn't exhibit at all in this conversation. Neither did Colin. Yeah, and their openness is a lie. I'm not blaming them. I'm not mad or anything. I really don't care. I just like to remind myself, no, these people say they're open, but if you contact them, they totally closed. Totally closed. And I'm not antagonistic online generally. I'm just like, hey, have you thought about this? Or hey, can you explain this to me? Because I'm genuinely curious. Because look, guys, there's always the possibility that something has changed in the world of science, right? Or that there's information that I was never given, because that happens all the time about all kinds of things constantly, right? And so I may need to change my mind about something. Taleb talks about this. The smart man's the one who changes his mind, not the one who never changes his mind, right? And so, based on new information, there's always a caveat, right? And so, yeah, there have to be exceptions to things, but also there's no reason not to engage with my responses to your tweets, none whatsoever. And maybe not in all cases, but in almost all cases. Like I said, I'm genuinely curious. Maybe things have changed. I'm just asking a question because I actually want an answer, right? I think it would be helpful. We maybe foster a discussion, but they never do that. These two in particular, for sure, I can show you the Twitter evidence if I really have to. They're not the things they think they are. They're not doing what they claim is valuable and important and correct. They're not doing it. Again, I'm not blaming them. I don't think people can do that. I think it's a fantasy of theirs that this is even possible, because you can always view my questions, because you can view any question, as antagonism. They're not antagonistic. I'm not being antagonistic. I do want some answers, though. It would be nice. I'd love to foster discussion. Although maybe neither of these guys are smart enough. I'd just slaughter them in a discussion. Probably they don't seem very bright, to be quite honest. They may have some facts about some things that I know nothing about. Fair enough. Everybody has facts about things I know nothing about. Everybody. I haven't met a single person yet. I don't expect I will. It doesn't seem possible. But it doesn't make them smart. It doesn't make them good at logic, reason, and rationality. I've pointed that out numerous times in the conversation. But it makes you guys smart if you've hung in there and, granted me the thing I value the most, which is your time, energy, and attention.